Good evening. I'd like to call to order the King George County Board of Supervisors for March the 5th, 2024.
I would like to call to order the King George Service Authority Board of Directors.
Please stand for the invocation by Mr. Sullins. Are there any amendments to the King George Board of Supervisor agenda? Are there any amendments to the King George Board of Supervisor agenda?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Pursuant to Code 2.2, TAC 3711A1, I would like to ask that we have a closed meeting to discuss personal matters.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Thank you, sir. Ms. Bender?
Are there any amendments to the Service Authority agenda? With none, do I have a motion? Or, sorry, motion. Pass on that one. Mr. Collins, I give it to you.
Public comment for the King George County Board of Supervisors and the King George County Service Authority. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name, your district when submitting your public comment, so it can be properly included in the public record. First, we have Pastor Davis.
Pastor Davis, can you hit the button? There you go, thank you.
Is it on? It's on. All right. I'm here tonight to be a blessing and read some scripture from the inspired Word of God. The Bible says he was despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we did hide, as it were, our faces from him, and he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet he did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we were healed. All we like sheep have gone astray. We have turned every one to his own way, and the Lord hath laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, as a sheep before her shearers is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. And the Bible tells us that he was, thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin. He shall see his seed. He shall prolong his days. He shall see of the trial of his soul, and shall be satisfied. He hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and bare the sin of many, and made intercession for our transgressions. That's from the prophet Isaiah, who wrote that 700 years before the birth of Christ. And we all need to be reminded about how good God is and how he supplied the ultimate sacrifice so that we could be forgiven. Praying for the board. I think you're doing a good job. God bless you. And keep looking up. Amen.
Thank you, sir. Don Shelton.
Don Shelton, 9430 Ashburn Court. Made to share a little piece of information about y'all to consider regards to Wilmot. Wilmot, the state road goes all the way down to the river. This county has no authority over Virginia State Road. It is a public access to the river. Been that way for hundreds of years. Again, the county government has no authority over that landing, pier, and that road. Again, thank you guys for serving. Thank you.
Thank you. Calvin Norris, Jr.
Thank you, Chairman. I am Calvin Norris. I'm from the Shiloh District and a resident of Wilmot Road. And I come to you because 2 weeks ago at your last meeting, we had heard that there was going to be some type of action taken on perspective of improving or making a new but parking lot on Wilmot Road. Unbeknownst to me as a citizen, this had been going on for 2 years. And speaking with some of you on the board, you had no idea it was going on at all. But for 2 years, Mr. Bob Bird has been in contact with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Mr. Bird is part of the Tourism Committee, trying to negotiate a piece of land where we could put a new parking area down there. This parking area would be probably about 300 yards away from the current parking area. In a white paper supplied by Mr. Clark of the Parks and Rec, it stated in there that because it was suggested by other speakers at the last meeting that perhaps we could charge an amount to go down there. And in his own paper, it says, basically, it's not feasible because of the mere fact that it would cost somebody, a staff member, to be on site for over 15 hours at a minimum wage of $12.50 an hour, which would amount to $200 a day, with them expecting proceeds of about $100 a day from 10 cars coming and going. He also said that that lot only had 3 spots for trailer parking and that everybody else parks up along the road, or most people do. Well, there are 3 to 4 spots for parking of trucks and trailers, and 5 spots for parking pickup trucks and automobiles that bring their kayaks down there to run over to the river. He also quoted saying in his paper that it's used by a lot of fishermen. 2 such fishermen are there to fish for the invasive species of blue catfish. Well, according to the March 1st paper, an article in the Freelance Star written by Ken Parati, I think it's how you pronounce his name, blue catfish aren't invasive. They were introduced to the James River and the Rappahannock River in 1970, 50 years ago. So that's a problem the state caused, not something somebody else caused. In addition, this land is going to be on federal property. Who is going to have jurisdiction of that? Second of all, we got $26,000 they want to spend to St. Mary's College of St. Mary's, Maryland, to do an archaeological study. Of that, $3,200, I believe, is going to be used to house the people doing this in our motels in King George, and they've asked for a discount rate if they could get it. I don't see where we're going to get the return on our $26,000 through tourism at Wilmot, and I'm sure that at the second portion of public hearing, I'll be up to speak again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. John Trowbridge.
Hey, good evening. Spoke to the board several times over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm just talking to the Board of Supervisors, the Service Authority Board, and trying to figure out why, not just I understand why we have debt in this county, I understand why the Service Authority is in debt. What I don't understand is why irrigation, charging the rates for irrigation on sewer, why we can't figure this out. Our surrounding counties have put in place residential irrigation programs that can separately monitor irrigation versus house usage. The biggest problem of this is, I pay well over $3,000 a year to the Service Authority for my water usage, just because I want to water, just because I'm using things that are not going in the sewer. We pay 224% higher rates on our sewer charge than we do for water in this county. That's insane, right? Not only that, how is it ethically or morally right to charge somebody sewer rates for water that's not being processed by any of our sewer facilities in the county? I don't understand that, right? Several general managers I've talked to before in the Service Authority, they've posed solutions that have then been permanently stalled and put to the back burner, never to be heard of again. Why? When I reach out to county administrators, this board being separate, right? Newly elected board, I got that. But there's no response. I send several communications back and forth, talk to people in person, there's no response. I understand, I got it. It's gonna be a loss of some income to the county. This is a minority of individuals out of the 2,500 or so Service Authority customers that this could benefit, right? So why are we not doing the right thing for our citizens? Why are we charging sewer rates on water that's not being processed by the sewer? I don't want to pay over $3,000 a year in water rates. Nobody does. I don't understand why we can't come up with a solution that's fair for the county, that's fair for every resident that uses that is part of the Service Authority for the county. And with that, appreciate your time, and have a good one.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to give public comment? Is there anyone online?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Public comment will be closed. Reports of members of the board. Mr. Stroud?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Pastor Davis, for providing those words from Scripture. Mr. Strawbridge, is that correct? Trowbridge, thank you. So I remember whenever I first came to Virginia and got a house and I had to start paying those bills, and it really irritated the jeepers out of me. And I called up the water authority. I'm like, there's no way, because I had a house that wasn't lived in for a month, and the toilet was flushed twice, and I had a $400 bill, and I couldn't figure it out. And because I had a sprinkler system, this is in Fredericksburg. So I understand the frustration. I don't have the answer. I don't. I think maybe Ms. Bender can address it better, but it's very frustrating. But I know there's a challenge of figuring out what water's going back into the soil, and what water's going back into the treatment system. So that's a problem. All they know is what is coming to your house, I think. But it is frustrating. So I don't have any answer for that, but I share your frustration. I don't have any reports for this period, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Sullins?
Thank you, sir. So I want to thank folks for coming out. I echo what Mr. Strauss said, Mr. Trowbridge. And I do have your email on here, and I do apologize for not responding to that. I want to talk to you later, and we'll go forward with that. As a side note, and I say this seriously, has anybody heard from Ms. Lovell tonight? This is the first meeting in over a year that I've been to that she did not come and make public comment. All right. Check on her later. Just for report, I got to go to a FAMPO meeting, Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Subcommittee this past week. We were talking about the potential of a regional transit authority. That's something that has been floated about in 2 years past. A lot of details to it. I put something out on Facebook earlier this week talking about a town hall meeting that I had on Saturday and some of the folks that came out, and I alluded to the RTA. I'll put some more information out on Facebook later on, but it's something that may be coming our way. It's not something that I'm excited about. It would be another tax on our citizens levied by the state, not by the county. But with that tax, portions of that money would go into a kind of a master pool that would be operated by the RTA administration, I guess, if you will. And a portion of that would come back to the county to be used as we will. The portion that goes to the greater good, I guess, would be used for road projects all around the region, but that region includes Spotsylvania, Fredericksburg, Stafford, King George, and Caroline counties. So I imagine the bulk of that money that leaves King George County would go up and be used along I-95 and up along areas close to 95. So more to follow on that, but it was an interesting meeting, a lot of good discussion, and like I say, I'll put the details in a Facebook post that comes out later. I did enjoy the town hall meeting that we had on Saturday. We're going to do those again, and I do apologize for not getting the word out on that a little bit earlier. I'll do a better job of posting that. But if you check out the Facebook page, that's where I'll be doing the announcements of that too. So feel free to come out and join us when we have them. And then finally, I got to go out this weekend and visit the Wilmot boat landing, and it's a neat place out there. So interested to hear the conversation tonight and how that goes. Thank you.
Mr. Davis?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. I appreciate it. It always takes a lot to get engaged with what's going on in the community. I know there's been a bug going around too. I lost 10 pounds last week. I was either just tired or sleeping, and I just could not get out of bed. It was miserable, but I feel good today. So a lot better today. I didn't want to lose the 10 pounds, so I wanted to try to keep those on. I think I found it. Take it back. Yeah, you got it. You took it for me. All right. Stowbridge, right? Did I say that right? Strobridge. I even wrote it out, Strobridge. Thank you so much. It's one of the reasons why, a couple of us ran. I'm the Dahlgren supervisor, so it's a big concern. I think we're the largest user of all those, services, and we've been digging into it. The hard part about it is it's a 30-year problem. If you're new on the board, you're just getting into digging into it. It's like almost like you're starting back from square one, And luckily, Ms. Bender's been on the board for a while. This has been like her baby, if I could say anything else. She's got notebooks this thick on it, and I can promise you that behind the scenes we are digging into it and trying to get a solution for everything that's going on. I don't like the fact that the government made a mistake, or that the service authority made a mistake, and then the bill just got passed on to everybody else. I don't even know if that's constitutional in some ways, but it seems a little ridiculous. But we are looking into it, I promise you that. And keep coming back, keep checking with us, keep keeping us on our toes and making us do that. Mr. Norris, as far as I know we're supposed to talk about it later on, but as far as I'm concerned on that, it's like almost like we need to postpone any kind of talks about doing anything down there until we get together with some of the people that actually live in the area and discuss with them kind of like, no one knows that area probably better than you, right? Your family's been back there forever, and sit down and kind of walk through it, talk through it, and see what is possible, what could we do that would kind of, maybe make the parking better. I know that one hill down there is pretty dangerous, and it's an accident ready to happen. But I think it's something that we need to. I'm not a know-it-all. I don't know everything, But I like to get around people that know things. So if you know the area, and I'd like to maybe set a time to come out there and get your thoughts on what's possible, what we can do, and you're more of an expert on that than I am. So let's make that happen. February closed out for me, and I don't usually talk about this stuff, but there's some things I got to do. I got to go meet with Love Thy Neighbor had a Valentine banquet here in this building. I don't know if you guys came or not, but it was their first one, and it was really good because that if you follow Love Thy Neighbor at all, just the way that whole organization has grown throughout the years from being a closet. One time it was at my church, and people came by once a week to getting some stuff to where it's now, it's almost like a functioning grocery store that people go in, and it's really doing a lot of good for our community. It's really growing. And the banquet that night raised a lot of money. So that was on Valentine's Day. I think they're going to do it again next year. You get a second sign up. It's not that expensive. If the money goes to a good cause. I did get a chance in February also to meet with some of the fire department at the Smoot Library, just kind of go over what some of their concerns were as far as staffing and where they felt we needed it the most. You know, people give you, 8 positions, and my mindset is, what 3 or 4 of them, if you had to pick anything, what would that be? And just having to sit down and just talk about that and talk about pay and talk about what we can do to better support them. And then I got to go to, I think it's called Back Porch, to a Young Life event, which is really good. They do a lot of good in our community, just working with our kids, and they kind of hear the testimonies of the kids that kind of step forward of what it's meant to them. Some from broken families, some from just, regular everyday families, but everyone's got their things that they're going through. I feel like this generation is getting forced to go through a lot more earlier than what we had to go through at that age. Like, they're being forced to grow up a little bit faster than what I think is necessary. But that's another story. That's another board. But anyway, thank you all for coming out, and appreciate the support.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Ms. Binder?
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm going to run down, and Mr. Trowbridge, I'm going to address your concerns at the very end, because it goes with what I've got for today. So I attended on February 21st, the regular meeting of the Area Agency on Aging, or better known as Healthy Generations. And then that next week, I attended their Black History Month celebration in this room, and it was a great event with personal stories, and I appreciate being invited and being able to attend the festivities. On February 24th, I attended the Brisbane Center's 35th anniversary bash. It was the first time they held it, and it was as a suggestion of one of our own King George residents. They had an auction, and it was great to see how much money in the auction that people stepped up to give. And I think the total was over $50,000 they donated to the homeless shelter. Mr. Kelly Strauss was the auctioneer. Our middle school chorus came and sang for them. It was a really nice event, and I have to give a shout out to Miss Stephanie Neprosh. Man, does she have a beautiful voice. And she sang with her chorus, and it was a really good time. Next up, I attended on Saturday, the Innovation Challenge. Been honored to attend all 3 of them. That's a STEM event where they have robots, and they give them the robots, and they have to plot courses and do coding and all these cool things. But what was even greater was King George was the winner. They got $5,000 donated to the school. So I want to shout out to the teachers. Yes, give them a hand. It's important to honor our students that did really awesome. I got to talk to them and give them a little pep talk, and this biggest thing was confidence, and it was amazing. The team that won, when I spoke to them, they were like, I don't know how I'm going to do. I can't get that coding right on the camera, and lo and behold, they won. So that was pretty amazing. I also next want to give a recognition to the King George High School and Middle School band programs. Our theater and band and chorus programs are awesome and are recognized regionally as awesome. And so our King George Middle School 8th grade symphonic band, our King George High School concert band, and our King George High School wind ensemble got the designation of the Virginia Band and Orchestra Directors Honor Band designation. And they, especially the middle school, and I have to shout, my daughter does play on the middle school band, but they were given a perfect score. All 3 judges gave them the highest honors of the superior ranking, and I heard the concert band and wind ensemble got it also. So I just another clap for the kids that perform in the band. Next up, I attended with Mr. Sullins, the GWRC meeting, and then our meeting on the RTA. A little more information on the RTA right now. There's different kinds of splits they're talking about, but like Stafford, they kind of like the 70-30 split, which is 70% to them and 30% to us of the money that's collected from whatever tax is decided. There are pros and cons to everything, but one of the biggest thing that bugs me a little bit about it is that, there's projects that go with this. So the whole idea of this RTA is it was kind of being forced on us by senators and delegates that don't represent King George. And this is, at least we got them to delay it until next year, and this subcommittee was part of it, and this was before Mr. Sullins was on the board. We did this last year. So by June, we're supposed to have a recommendation of what kind of legislation we would tolerate, because it's probably going to be introduced by one of the senators from Northern Virginia, whether we like it or not. And an RTA is to raise money to do a lot of road projects, because Smart Scale now requires more leveraged funding, which means the localities have to put in more money. And so this is a way to get the money. The only problem is King George really has not had a study since VDOT did one of 301, and a study is needed to apply for these Smart Scale applications. So we don't have any study to have all that data behind it to put in really big projects. So except for the one that was done by VDOT in 2017, which is kind of a little outdated at this point. So one of the things for King George was to be doing more extensive study of 206, 205, and 301 and 3 to see if we can put in for projects. I just want to make sure that King George doesn't get taxed and not represented. So that's one thing that I'm going to, with Mr. Sullivan's help, to talk about at the meetings. In my other roles, I've had quite a few discussions about the PayPoint HR salary study, about the Brentech contract, about our chemicals for the Service Authority, and FOG. That's another thing I've learned recently. Mr. Young and I had a great discussion with Bowden about FOG, which is fats, grease, and oils, and the problem they cause when they're introduced, especially by our commercial businesses, into the system that does damage to the wastewater plant. It kills the good bugs, and it causes violations to occur, and that coming up with a system that's finally implemented so that we can work with our businesses to not have that grease come into the system and kill the good bugs. Now, I'm going to go back to the Service Authority question about irrigation. So later tonight is going to come up the Hopyard permit. So the state of Virginia, based on the Chesapeake Bay Act and our water structure of the state, if you read the water supply plan, but in the Amazon agreement, I read both the 2015 and the 2020 water supply plan. And King George has its own chapter, which is pretty unusual. And I finally got in the last month an explanation of why. If you think of a feather, King George is on the tip of the feather, and we're at the very end of the aquifer, the Potomac aquifer. So any recharge that is being done in Hampton Roads would take 100 years to reach King George because we're at the fall line, the very edge. So the other localities that are around us are not in the same aquifer and do not have the same challenges as King George. Our aquifer has been depleted over the last 50 or 60 years by the paper mills in West Point and down that and other industries. So we have actual critical cells, and Hopyard's permit is actually in one of those critical cells. So Department of Environmental Quality and through the Chesapeake Bay Act, they are heavily, and we got confirmation of this, of Mr. Young and I were on a phone call with DEQ, where they basically have told us you have to find an alternative water source by a certain amount of time. The current permit that's out is that water is 10 years. Well, no, yeah, it's not at year 9, they start to tier us to year 10. If we go for a 15-year permit, the tier starts at year 13. So the whole point is we will be forced onto surface water, no matter what. So in our discussions 2 years ago, where we did talk about irrigation on the Service Authority, it was heavily frowned on by DEQ for any irrigation because it would drain from the groundwater. So if we do go to surface water, that is an availability that we might be able to look at. But right now, the way the permit is structured, that would probably be frowned upon to use any kind of encourage irrigation to deplete the aquifer, because the Hopyard does sit over a critical cell. And we will be talking later about the permit because it is up for agreement on the permit, and we have until Friday to give an answer to whether we take that, what they have given us, or maybe extend it to 15 years or any other discussion. So I hope that answered your question, and I'm sorry about, especially recently, I didn't get your email. It was actually trapped in the months of a bunch of other DEQ emails that we're trying to address. And one of the biggest things I've found is that we need to be more open with DEQ and communicate. And I've made my mission to do that when we've been communicating with DEQ, to make sure we don't miss windows of things we have to report on, and to have a good path forward. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing and have been doing. And now, last thing is concerning All Points Broadband. I know we've asked them to come today, and I talked to Mr. Innes today, especially about a certain property, and one of them was Mr. Norris's property also. with 3 properties. Well, one of the biggest things of a challenge is that VATI grant, and they're only allowed to service right now the houses that were recognized in 2021 under the VATI grant. And they're willing to, when it's over, they're putting in the infrastructure to then offer other residents those, the ability to hook up. But right now, under the VATI grant, they're only allowed certain houses that were mapped out in 2021. And they have gone to the state and tried to get some of other houses included. But to be honest, once I've said this many times, the monopolies of All Point Broadband they claim that a census block is theirs whether they serve you or not. It's a cost of entry. So that is a big barrier. And I'm going to ask again, Dominion, you got 73 polls you got to get on the ball and get up, because that's about 400, I think it's 462 days, and normal standards 165 days. And so they need those polls up so they can do the last mile. Northern Neck Electric has done a great job doing what they could in a very fast amount of time. And part of the Dominion system has done great with the middle mile program. But the people, the section that does the polls and puts them up, I'm asking you, get us our 73 polls so those residents can get their service. And I know that was but I covered a lot of information, and I thank you for everybody for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Bender. So, thank everyone for coming out. Good to see everyone. Thanks for your comments. Ms. Bender, will you recognize Lee and continue?
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. Thank you, Pastor Davis, if you're still here, for your words. Appreciate it. Mr. Strobridge, I think Mr. Davis and Ms. Bender have kind of covered what I don't want to necessarily repeat what they said here, but I do want to echo what Mr. Davis said, and I think his comments kind of hit the nail on the head, and it's great to have you out here. Keep coming out here to help keep us honest. I think that's a big thing, is citizen participation, to keep us doing the right thing that's best for the community. So you mentioned some old plans or sewer irrigation programs. Haven't heard that before. Again, I'm new, so I do live in Hopyard, so I get it. I have a very similar issue. So, keeping our grass green and paying that bill is tough. So that's something that I would like to look into. If you have any knowledge, please come see me. Be happy to get a jump start on maybe finding some of that and seeing. I know we've got some DEQ difficulties, as Ms. Bender mentioned, but if there's some way that we can work all those things together, it would be great to try and make that approach and make some things work out. So if you have something, or just people that were here before, if I can look for them and do some old research, I will start going down that road. But I appreciate you coming out and giving us that information. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you, Ms. Bender.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
Consent agenda item number 301, 301.1, 301.2, 301.3, 301.4.
I'll make a motion to approve all those as stated.
Second.
Properly second. Is there any discussion?
As far as I had a couple of my constituents have reached out to me because they get access to these, and they're like, we can't tell what it's for. Just, there's really no PO that goes with any of these things. They kind of explain where the money's being spent or what it's being spent on. It's just money's being spent, and you're getting something that's telling you to sign it. So sometimes, as someone who's in charge of that, it's kind of, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, about just signing warrants that I have no idea who, when, what, where, and really what it was for. Sometimes it's just, and I told my constituents, I said, if you think it's confusing for you, it's just as confusing for me. So I just wanted to say that out loud, that I think that some of these things, like there had to be a PO created, and maybe there should be more of a breakdown, and maybe we need a little bit more accountability of, trying to trust but verify about what's going on. But anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. So that was my same problem with last meeting. The reason why I voted nay, because I don't know what the money's being spent on. Before I can sign off or agree to it, I would like to see what the money's spent on. Also, the warrants, verification of warrants issued to avoid late charges or disruption of service. So we have a board meeting about every 2 weeks. So there should not be any warrants for disruption of service. The warrant should be before us before there's any disruption of service. So that's another one that doesn't hold water for me. There was a motion, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Nay. Alrighty, next one is February 9th, 2024, King George Board of Supervisors Special Meeting Minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Davis?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Constitutional officers, Commissioner of Revenue. Is there any report, Ms. Bucket? No report? Sheriff Giles, is he in the room?
Mr. Collins, Sheriff Giles texted me. He has no report.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Randy Jones? Not seeing him. Interim County Attorney report, Mr. Stewart? Okay. Would you be willing to give us an update on Amazon?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So I spoke with their representative, Charlie Payne, a little while back. They've not responded to the suggestions that I gave him that the board was interested in terms of changes to that agreement. Apparently, they have not had a discussion on it, so I intend to write them a formal letter probably this week and outline those one more time. I found out from DEQ that since Amazon AWS bought the Birchwood site, they have now gotten the water intake permit in their name, and they did that administratively with DEQ, and they did it only for industrial cooling water. And the reason that that is significant is because they had promised King George County a minimum amount of drinking water, and they did not disclose that to DEQ, and therefore the permit that they have now would not allow drinking water to come to King George. And so as we go through, we can discuss some of these things, and you'll have to make some decisions as we go forward. But that was a significant thing. Now, I spoke to them about that, and their response was that they just did that for convenience at this time. But very honestly, it concerned me.
Any questions for Mr. Stewart in regards to that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Brown?
So not really a question, just my understanding with that, maybe amplifying information, sure, is that they needed to transfer the permit with the sale, and that was for expediency, and that they, after the fact, that they were gonna go back later to get the permit for the drinking water. Granted, we have no assurance of that because we don't have anything from them providing that. But they said they just need to do it for expediency purposes. And what I would like to see out of it is something saying that they are going to provide that, and also a schedule. There's some schedule for when they're going to start building, which we don't have. In that performance agreement, there was no schedule.
And Mr. Chairman, if that's a question to me, I can tell Mr. Stroud, that that is in fact inaccurate. I spoke with DEQ. They could have gotten the permit transferred to them with an allowance of drinking water for King George had they chosen to do that. They told me that it was a matter of convenience for them to transfer it as is for just industrial cooling water. And at this point, they insist that the agreement that the old board before January entered into is a good agreement, and we disagree on that. I'm trying to get them to discuss some reasonable changes, but so far we're not getting very far, but I'm gonna keep on trying on that.
Ms. Bender?
Mr. Stewart, Mr. Stroud brought this up. So by transferring over the permit, it was only a minor modification. And from my understanding, they didn't want a major modification, which is if they acknowledged that they had signed an LMLU with us for 600,000 gallons, which is the bare minimum we would need today to service all the service authority customers. Is that correct?
That is accurate. They were able to do it administratively as a minor modification. And they said they did that for convenience, and you all make the decision. It just, you know, where I come from, if you promise somebody something, you're supposed to deliver on it. And there's no evidence there of that.
I just wanted to clarify that because that's been my biggest thing at the time is drinking water and to make sure that our residents get drinking water, especially since, as we now will see with the Hopyard permit, we are being given a timetable to get to, as DEQ puts it, not surface water, an alternative water source besides groundwater. They're very specific about that. Thank you.
So I was involved along with Ms. Bender in all these meetings with Amazon and Mr. Payne representing Amazon. And at those meetings that are public, on record, they say that they promised us, the word promised was used many, many times, that they're going to give us at least 600,000 gallons of drinking water. And from what I understand, that's not a promise they ever intended to keep. So, thank you.
In all fairness, they can change that permit at a later time if they choose to do that. They just have not shown any evidence. They did not recognize with DEQ that they ever promised King George County any drinking water. And I confirmed that with DEQ.
Thank you. Ms. Bender, consent agenda for the Board of Directors.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda for the Board of Directors?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? With no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
Chair votes aye, motion carries. Now we'll proceed on to the Board of Directors. We have no public presentations. The first off is Mr. Richard Stewart Sr. for a resolution to rescind the Service Authority merger resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So sometime before I became county attorney last fall, the board adopted a resolution to merge the service authority with the county, as I understand it, and I've gone back and looked through that. If the board chooses to do that, the only proper way that I'm aware of is to rescind that prior resolution. And so what I have prepared for you all is a resolution that would rescind those prior actions by both the Service Authority and the Board of Supervisors in your packet, which means you would not merge the Service Authority if that's what you choose to do.
Anyone would like to give discussion? Does anybody like to give a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to rescind the Service Authority merger as presented by Mr. Stewart.
That's fine.
Second?
I have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Stewart, does this have to be a roll call vote for this? Or would it be better to do a roll
It
call?
does not. My understanding of the law is, if you're spending money or if you're adopting an ordinance, and this is a resolution.
Okay. I have a motion properly second. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next up is the Verizon lease agreement. Mr. Stewart?
Madam Chair, again, sometime before I stepped in to help, there was a lease that you all approved on the Who's Water Tower with Verizon. And then apparently Verizon came back and wanted some changes to that lease. As I went through it, the lease appears to be fine legally, but I had questions about infrastructure and such. And so I've sent that on to Travis Quisenberry, because he's the county engineer and I thought he should be involved in that lease. And I think as we speak tonight, he is negotiating with Verizon on some changes that they had requested that frankly I have no competency to suggest or recommend. And I think we need to leave that up to Travis Quisenberry. There are two things I think you can do. You can either table it for tonight, or you can authorize Mr. Quisenberry and myself to finalize any minor modifications in the lease and authorize the chair to sign it. Upon that, if you want to move forward, or you can table it, we can take it up at the next meeting after we've finished going through it with Verizon.
All right, thank you. Anybody? Sean, go ahead.
Mr. Stewart, are you able to give us a kind of a rough idea of what the changes are? I mean, I've got the lease right here in front of me, but I don't have the old one to compare it with.
There was a change regarding an exhibit which was not significant. There was a change that also had to do with the amount of infrastructure and the size that they could put on the tower. And they wanted the flexibility to increase that by up to 10%. And Mr. Quisenberry felt like 5% was more reasonable given what they're doing. I would suggest we rely on him because I don't know how much that water tower will hold, quite frankly. So that's why I deferred to him.
Mr. Davis?
I do not.
Colin? Nothing. So what is the will? Do we want to table this, or do we want to make a motion to authorize and have Mr. Quisenberry, Mr. Stewart finalize it? Is it time sensitive?
I'm sure Verizon thinks it is.
Obviously, a corporation would.
I suspect we have a little bit of time.
Colin?
Make a motion to allow the interim county attorney, Mr. Richard Stewart, and Travis Quisenberry to work out the details of the water tower lease agreement.
Would you also want them to,
And then you want to authorize someone to sign it. You could, whoever you want, it doesn't matter, it wouldn't be me, but it would be one of you all, or perhaps Mr. Rasavi is part-time interim could help.
Mr. Collins, you want to amend your motion or add to your motion to allow signature? Yes.
Yes.
Well, the person who has signature, okay. So we're, just so I clarify your motion, you made a motion to approve the lease agreement and have Mr. Stewart and Mr. Quisenberry finalize it and then have it signed.
Yes.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion properly made and seconded. All those, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Chair votes aye, motion carries. Next up is the approval of the Hopyard water permit. Mr. Bryce Young, if you could come up and Bryce was on the phone call with DEQ with me, so he can give some further and has been working on it. And I see Mr. Eisenbeiss is in the audience, so he can answer some questions also. So, Mr. Young?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. The Virginia Department of Environmental Quality groundwater withdrawal permit for the Hopyard water system requires board approval to be completed and signed. This is a two-tiered permit with the last 2 years of permit allowing a decreased amount of water to be withdrawn from the aquifer. This is done to guide the county towards alternative water sources. Our permit options are a 10-year permit that allows 8 years at Tier 1 and 2 years at Tier 2, or a 15-year permit that allows us 13 years at Tier 1 and 2 years at Tier 2 for an additional fee. Staff recommends the 15-year option to allow more time to transition to surface water effectively and efficiently.
And I'll add some clarification. It would be $3,000 more to do the permit modification. Right now, we did pay already, and I think it was $6,000. They at least said on the call it was $6,000. We already paid for the permit. This permit has been open for a while at DEQ. It kind of got lost on somebody's desk during COVID, but they want to finalize and wrap this up. In our conversation with DEQ, they kind of told us that, and I asked the pointed question, because some of our other permits, the Courthouse and the Fairview Beach permit are coming up soon, that this will be in all our permits, because they are really want us to get off of the groundwater withdrawal and go to an alternative water source. So it's a state mandate. I understand why. We are in a critical cell, especially Hopyard, but this at least buys us if we go for the 15-year option, it at least buys us 5 more years to come up with options. Now, I will bring up, why is this an action and discussion item? And many of the things that I found after January 2nd, this was supposed to be taken care of at a different time, and it was not. And so DEQ, when we spoke to them, they had said, we give you until Friday to make a decision. So this was out there for a while, so I understand why they want a decision, because they want King George to finalize this permit. So that is why this is a discussion and action at tonight's meeting. So if you want further question, I'll open it up for discussion. I know it had the permit sent. I will say one thing: if whichever option we approve, it will go out for public comment for 30 days, that the public can weigh in on it. But we have to approve whichever, and if we choose the 15, there will be a little more negotiation. One other option is, it has been suggested that we have used Aqua Law in the past, because it's more their specialty on water and sewer issues. We use them during the WIP 3 discussions, that we reach out to them to just have them look over to make sure that, because they've been working with us in the past, to make sure everything's okay. And hopefully they can, in that short timeline, help us to just check it over to make sure it's okay. But Mr. Solons, do you have any? I'm going to go down the line. Mr. Davis, any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Collins?
So what is the total cost for 15 years?
It's an extra $3,000
$3,000.
for the permit to, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess just to help quell my own ignorance, so DEQ is trying to force us off the aquifer, is basically the understanding of where we're going here. Are they forcing other people off the aquifer too?
Well, anybody east of 95, because that's where the critical cells are. It just happens that because we're at that tip of the feather, we have a lot of critical cells. That's why we have our own chapter in the water supply plant. But Hopyard just happens to be one of the cells. The whole county doesn't have these cells, but Hopyard has one of them. Yes.
If I can, this is a big issue, I can tell you, for our region and others, and they are. And the problem is this: when you get a permit with DEQ, it's first come, first served. So, for instance, Caroline's trying to get a permit now to take water all the way to Carmel Church. And once they get that permit, it may limit someone else's authority, because while it seems like the river is an infinite supply of water, if you suck a lot out right here, it draws the salinity up the river. And that's an impact, because then farmers in Leedstown can't irrigate their crops. And I'm just using that as an example. And so DEQ is gonna do all that modeling, and it sort of forces you to be the first one in, because if you're after somebody else, it could limit your ability to get one. And it's a problem we're about to face pretty significantly from probably, Fairfax to Hampton Roads, and because, the aquifer runs from down there to up there, and the higher you are in the aquifer, the faster it drops where we are. And then at the other end, they've got saltwater infiltration, so they've got their own problems down there. There's one program in Hampton, which is injecting about 1 million gallons a day back into the aquifer of clean sewer water, but that really is just literally a drop in the bucket. So we're gonna see a lot of these changes coming from DEQ.
Is DEQ or the state as a whole, because the aquifer really should be water for people, for drinking, right? That's the purest, cleanest water that you can have. If the paper mill's taking all the water.
The Constitution of Virginia guarantees our natural resources for the benefit and enjoyment of the citizens.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, I put in a series of about 6 bills this year dealing with those issues. Some of them passed, some of them didn't, but one that did was mandating DEQ to update the 1992 Groundwater Management Act, which will give us some answers coming up. But the point is, it's always a first come, first served basis. So whoever gets in first and gets the permit, the person behind them may not be as lucky.
And one other thing I wanted to clarify too, in that tier 2, so the basically, and Bryce, you can back me up on this, is what we're allowed today to service the whole Hopyard, including the commercial. By year 9, it would half. So you would not have enough water for the people that are there now. Is that correct? That's a pretty summary.
Roughly half.
Yeah, roughly half. It would go, that would be allowed. So what is the pleasure of the board, or you have other questions?
So the permits are first come, first serve. So Amazon already got a permit for 6 million gallons, and Caroline is working on a 6.6.
This is a little different. This is the actual aquifer.
Then you mentioned that all these permits are intertwined?
Yes and no. The aquifer's going down pretty much so quickly, and there's nothing to recharge it. They're gonna make us get off of it. They're gonna make other areas get off. They're trying to figure out a way to get it to recharge. So everybody's gonna get pushed to surface water. Amazon's permit, I think, gives them 6.6 million gallons a day for industrial cooling water. I don't know what Caroline's was, but it was similar, that they want for drinking water.
So that would put us in a bind if we didn't have an agreement with Caroline for the drinking water, Rappahannock. So it's going to take more than 8 years to get off the surface water,
It could be,
groundwater, excuse me.
but this permit is just, it's what, 10 and 15 years is what they issue, correct?
Those are the 2 options.
Those are the
presented
2
to us.
options.
So you're already in a bind, no matter which number you go with, to get off of that.
This
Other
only
people-
buys us 5 years, basically.
Thank you.
Any further questions? What is the pleasure? Because I have to respond to DEQ by Friday.
I think from my perspective, if the 15 year is at a minimal cost, the 15 years sounds like it's got a much better, we get a little bit longer life in order to transition to the other, way we're being forced out here, so.
And also, just for clarification for the public, treating surface water is challenging and it has costs, and a water treatment plant has costs. That's why I will tell you honestly, I've been so bullish especially on the Amazon agreement because of the water. What is everybody, I hate to put you all on the spot, but I do need an answer.
I think $3,000 for 5 years' worth of water is a bargain. That's less than our county phone bill per month.
Mr. Davis? Mr. Collins? And then, what do you guys feel about then also reaching out to Aqua Law just to make sure they can see if they can look at it real quickly? They have been involved with it before, so it hopefully it won't be a big process to look at it. Do we need a motion for this one, Mr. Stewart?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think the motion would just be to proceed with the permit for 15 years with DEQ and to authorize consultation with Aqua Law on that.
And then relaying it to DQ?
Mhm.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the Hopyard water permit for the 15-year version as presented, for the 15-year option, rather.
Right.
15-year permit.
The 15-year permit, correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And Madam Chair, just to clarify, your motion did include authorizing Aqua Law, a consultation with them on the permit, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Motion properly seconded. All those in favor, I'm just gonna do the vote again. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Chair votes aye, motion carries. I just wanted to clarify that. The next one up is the redacted arcade case study. Mr. Stewart, I think you had some suggestion. You haven't had ample time to look over it.
Madam Chair, I've looked at it. That's not my issue. My issue is you all are gonna have to make some tough decisions in the coming days. And let's see, how do I say this? Because I don't want to injure your bargaining ability with Amazon. But that document has a lot of information in it that Amazon could benefit from if they were to read it. And so I'm not sure you want to authorize that just yet. We've talked all about this water issue. The one thing that this county has the ability to do, and I'm not suggesting you do it, but you have the ability to condemn that water intake right there. And for that 6.6 million gallons a day river water. And in fact, that document talks a little bit about the value of that and some other things. So my legal advice would be at this point to hold on to that document until you all make some decisions, because you're going to be forced to make some decisions here in the near term.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Stewart?
So you brought that. So I'm stuck in the same boat. I don't want to say too much to impact other decisions that maybe you guys would bring up, but just give me 1 minute. Yeah.
I can give you. Does anybody else have?
Yeah, I think in light of what Mr. Stewart's brought on, I just think that we should deny rent this time.
Table it.
Yes.
Mr. Solon, table? Mr. Collins, table?
Yes, but does need a motion?
Do we need a motion for that? No, we just table it for right now. All right, we're up to the secondary public comment for the Board of Directors. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so they can be properly recorded and included in the public record. Is there anybody in the audience who would like to come up and give second public comment? Anybody like one more chance? All right, is there anybody online?
No, Madam Chair.
I'm so used to looking over there. Now I gotta look over here. All right, did anybody get any correspondence while we've been sitting up here?
Yes.
I have some correspondence, but it actually is for the Board of Supervisors, so I'll bring that in later. if it's
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I make a motion that we adjourn until Tuesday, March the 17th,
19.
19th, 2024, at 5:30 in the Revercombe Building.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion properly seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Chair votes aye. Motion carries. The Board of Directors of the Service Authority is adjourned. Mr. Collins?
3.02 Courthouse Status Update, Branch Builds. Mr. Abe Senkilara.
Hey everyone, I'm Abe Sankari. I'm the project manager on King George Courthouse, and I have with me Todd Demetrio. He's our director of operation. So
Turn that little button on the side till it goes green. There you go. I can do it. You can just prompt me.
Go back. All right. So it's a construction management at risk project. We started in November 2022, and we're going to finish substantial completion is going to be June of this year. The project consists of it's about 51,000 square foot building and on 5.5 acres. We have 55 parking spaces and 28 for the staff. So this where when we started in November 2022, we start clearing. You see the highlighted area. That's where we started clearing the site, and that's after clearing. That's December 2022, and then we start grading the site, and you see there where we prep for the retaining wall and the foundations. We start foundation January, February 2023. And then we start the structural steel. Structural steel was divided for 7 sequences. That's sequence 1, and then sequence 2 and 3, and 4, and 6 and 7. Here's some pictures of the steel structure. And we started building here early last year. And at the same time, we were doing the flat work of concrete and the mason work. Here's some picture. I don't. It's not very clear here on this screen. It was clear in the boardroom. So here, when we started the roofing, while we're doing some envelope, the building envelope, exterior work. At the same time, that's so the last picture was early summer last year, and at the same time we're doing the interior roofing, metal framing, the CMU, mechanical, electrical, roughing. There's some pictures of the progress we had in the summer. Same, we were doing installing stairs and all the metal. There's some pictures of the MAP work. And that's the building envelope. This was taken October last year. That's before fall. We had the building envelope completed, and then we started installation. Some pictures of preparing for installation. And this October last year, after we finished the installation, we started the masonry work, the brick work for the building envelope, and we started installing windows, October 2022, or 2023. This December 2023, and installed a cupola. December, had some snow, and the roof, January 2024 was done. We started finishes. Flooring started February. We're done with the bathrooms, restrooms, and now paint and door installation ongoing. We're about 50% with the doors and 80% with the paint now. And we started installing the cabinets and casework. Now we're ready for the flooring. We should start within a week or two with the flooring. Here's some pictures from inside, from interior finishes. And as we speak, the elevator's getting installed. We should finish up within 2 to 3 weeks from now with the elevators. There's some exterior updates. Basically, we're done with the elevations, just keeping these 3 or 4 columns till we finish so we don't damage them. And we start with the bays in the east parking lot. Right, here's some drone pictures were taken by the fire department. Here's when we started last year. That's early last year. Here's pictures of the foundations. Done. Sequence 1, steel structure, sequence 2, and 3 and 4 here. It's the last sequence of the steel structure. There's the roof and building envelope done before winter, before fall. The roof material here you see on the roof when we started. This picture was taken early this year or December last year. There's some current pictures. This was taken a month ago. Bottom. I have a video time lapse here from start. It's about 4 minutes. I will start grading here and some site work. See, we're cutting the grade, preparing for a building pad. That's all site utility items. And the retaining wall getting poured there. Then we started with the foundations. Have about 50 to 60 people working at the same time every day. Now it's going up to 100. Here we're going up with the steel structure and the CMU, the block around the building and the lower level. Structure steel going up. And pouring concrete slabs. It's summer 23. Here's the building envelope going. Start with steel and then the sheathing around the building. And here where the mason comes and start installing his scaffolding, the fracco, that's what we call it. Start insulation first, insulate the building, and then the brick will go up. Is the insulation going? This is the yellow thing, and then the brick. That's September last year. And here's the windows. Windows got installed. And here's, we move the camera to the front. See the cupola went up. And the front brick followed that. December. Some snow here. And the roof was done in January. Right, and we're going to start the sidewalks in the parking lot next week. Then we'll do the asphalt pavement end of March when all the trades start going out from the side, so we'll keep it clean. And we should, if everything went smoothly, we should finish in June. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions? Ms. Bennett?
Just to clarify, what is the timeline for completion? I know there's a little bit of a snag in the supply chain for one of the pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a delay for the switchgear delay. It was planned to be delivered November last year. And now it's scheduled to be delivered in June. But we found a solution, internal solution, and we're gonna have power. We're gonna install this temporary switchgear to have a permanent power and use the building by June. And then after we finish and open the courthouse, we'll ask you for a week to come back and replace the temporary switchgear.
Right, I just wanted to point that out because what you did to help us get into the building was pretty
appreciate
cool.
it.
And I
Thank you.
appreciate you finding a different option because
Absolutely.
all the, what are those, basically it's the electrical hub of the building, correct? And
Right.
one entity is paying a lot of money to buy them all up, and that's why it's taken a long time to get them, correct?
Well, we don't know. I don't have
But
an answer,
They're being bought up, basically.
probably.
Yeah. But
We
anyway,
asked them, to be honest, yeah, we sent them a letter. Hey, we told them why we didn't get our equipment on time, and we didn't get the answer till now. But once we get it, we absolutely will send it to you. And if there is something, you can talk to them directly.
I
But
just want the public to know it's not on your end. You're trying to get it, you put it
Absolutely,
in way
yeah.
ahead of time. It's a supply chain issue, and it's important to get that piece because that kind of runs the whole building. But I do appreciate your innovative solution. It's using what they use for stage productions, correct?
yeah.
So
So-
I do appreciate you helping out to get the building open in the innovative approach. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yeah. Welcome.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
0303, professional service agreement for a new fire station, Ms. Dillard.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. At the February 20th meeting, this item was tabled at the board's request for further information and questions. Do the board have further questions relating to this project?
How many square feet?
No more than 16,000 square feet.
16,000 square feet?
Yes.
$1.4 million? The courthouse was 51,000 square feet for 1.3 million.
Actually, I think, yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay, so for 16 times. At least 3-4 times as much for a building that's 16,000 square feet. Is there a reason for that?
I'm sure it has a lot to do with the complexity of the different degree of complexity, including the off-site traffic control, the helicopter pad, the training tower, the water and sewer main extensions of the property. I mean, there's some unique stuff coming in. Bryce can explain that a little bit more.
So in the original, talking about the fire station, there was no helipad and there was no training. It's been my experience that a helicopter for any incident will land as close to the scene as possible. If there's a route, if I'm in an accident up on Route 3 and they decide to fly me out, they're not going to bundle me up and then drive me all the way to Dalwyn to fly me to Fredericksburg. So it seems that who was on the decision-making process on this 1.4 million?
Travis and I were involved, and as far as the helipad goes, we have used the church parking lot in the past quite a few times. This will not be a FAA, it's the right acronyms, right? Approved helipad. This is a emergency use helipad, and the reason that is being installed there is part of the agreements with the church that we will have a helipad on site, so we don't have to continue to use their parking lot, because this is in general where they land helicopters when they need to take somebody from the Dahlgren area.
Well, they land them anywhere they can, Walmart parking lot, in the middle of the road. I've worked many, many instances where they drop the helicopter right there in the road. So I think that's spending money. We already have financial issues in this county. And we already have a training tower right over there, and I've driven by there 1,000 more times, and I've never seen anybody use it. I've been inside it. It looks like nobody's using it. So I think that these things that there's no doubt that we need a fire station. There's no doubt about that. Never an argument. But to pay $1.4 million for engineering and plans for a fire station when you paid 1.3 for a building that was 3 times as much. And, you know, they make fire stations every day. We've made fire stations. Surely we can find plans for a fire station for less than $1.4 million.
I would like to highlight there are a lot of aspects that go into the fire stations.
Yes, sir. I've looked through all the specifications, and I understand what the specifications are. But fire stations are built every single day. And I don't know of any that it costs $1.4 million just for the engineering. The fire station was originally slated in the CIP for $7 million, and now it's doubled at $14 million for no unknown reasons. So our job as the board is to control cost, not to spend widely. So I hear what you're saying. I understand it's a special use building, but I still don't believe that that kind of money is necessary for that type of building. Ms. Bender?
Mr. Chair, can we have Chief Moody come up to answer questions?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening to you. Before I get started on this topic, Ms. Lovell's okay. So she's at home resting peacefully with her husband. Let me just make a few comments on this, if you don't mind. So I've been working on this station for 14 years. We started it in 2010. The biggest thing that hamstrung this project is that we did not have any land. We searched for about 15 different parcels, and last year we just came across and we purchased 3.15 acres with Oakland Baptist Church. So that's where we're at today. The other thing I'd like to mention is that it's not $1.4 million, it's 1.142. So it's 1.1,142,420. We had a purchase order and an agreement back in 2016 with a different architectural firm. Ms. Bender may remember this, and this was with Erickson, LeMay, Wilcox. When we had that purchase order and that agreement for architectural and engineering services, that was for the Company 2 and the Company 4 Shiloh Station. That purchase order was roughly around $700,000 for 2 stations, but a mirror image of both buildings. So basically they could change the orientation, but it was pretty much the same facility. Because we didn't have land, we had to put that on pause until we purchased land. Last year we purchased land, we went back 16 to 2023. That architectural company gave us a new proposal, more money than what Mosley has provided. So it increased over $400,000 from 2016 to 2023. And when we got that proposal, we said, no deal. We're going to put this back for RFP. We're going to put it back on the street. We're going to see what responses we get. And in this response, when we did that, we received 7 responses. One of those responses was that old architectural firm that responded, that we had that agreement with in 2016. They responded again. Out of the 7 vendors, the team chose Mosley Architects. Now, unfortunately, because it's a professional services agreement, we're unable to go and say, who's the lowest bidder? Because that's not the way professional services works. Whether I like it or not, that's not the way it works. So we cannot go and say, well, we got a price from Mosley, we're going to get a price from this architectural firm, we're going to get a price from that architectural firm. We can't do that. So if the options we have is that, now we did negotiate with Mosley. And Mosley gave us an original price, and we said, no, we want to cut this, we want to cut that. So what we have today is pretty much our bottom price with Mosley. So that's point one. Point two, we did put in a drill tower, okay? And that drill tower just has to do with the construction. So the original drill tower that they were looking to design was a design and construction fee of about $375,000 to $400,000. I built that one right across the parking lot for about $50,000. We have the design on that one. I have the blueprints. Okay, all I have to do is pay the architect to say, hey, can I use this over there? And then we would just pay the construction. So it's not a live fire training facility, it's just a drill tower. But we're not talking much money in the grand scheme of close to $14 million. Okay, that's something we could do later on down the road if we wanted to. But it is not, we're not asking Mosley to design a drill tower. I have the plans for that drill tower. My goal and intent is to use those plans we've already paid for, okay? I could probably even a year or two down the road get some grant money to possibly pay for the construction of that drill tower, to have that there on site. Point three, the landing pad. The landing pad, like Miss Laverne had just mentioned, it is not a certified FAA landing pad. It is not going to be used for an instrument landing system. Mr. Collins, you may remember the state police did this in the Richmond, Henrico area. I think it cost several $1 million when they put their landing pad in. That is one that uses a instrument landing system where they can come in and fog and at nighttime conditions and rainy conditions and really can't see until they get above the treetops and then be able to land. This is not one of those landing pads. When we negotiated that land to purchase with Oakland Baptist Church, we were using their field and their parking lot as our primary landing spot for the Dahlgren area. We would go to accident scenes, and we also would go to, let's say, the Walmart parking lot or at the Gateway Shopping Center. I can tell you we've run into problems with that. When a helicopter lands and a little piece of gravel can go from that rotor wash, and then Chief Moody's got 3 voicemails the next day from people saying, hey, my windshield's cracked or my paint's chipped, and what are you going to do to remediate and to, take care of this for me? So we had used that flat level surface up there. Everybody knows what corner it is in Dahlgren, right at the corner of 218 and 301, right adjacent to Four Seasons Daycare and Oakland Baptist Church. That land is flat, and that's where we would land that helicopter in the event we would need one. When we purchased that land with Oakland Baptist Church, they said the only way we would do that is that we would not want you to purchase that land and then you land the helicopter in our parking lot. And so in the agreement that we purchased, when we purchased that land for the church, in that agreement says that we will have a spot that we will land a helicopter if we need it. We won't land it in our parking lot. And so what this is, we may call it a helipad, but essentially it's just a piece of concrete that we're taking in the field and putting some lights on it and a windsock. That's it. We'll paint an H on it for a helipad. It will be a windsock, a couple marker lights, but it is not going to be something that's being used day in and day out like you would see with a permanent airport or permanent helipad. And I'm happy to answer any other questions about that. I felt like that just needed some clarification.
So Chief, I was on the board when we approved the money to buy the property. I didn't see that in that agreement anywhere where it said that we would furnish helipad. We said we agree to pay $300 and some odd thousand for this piece of land. I never saw in there that we made an agreement to do that. The other thing is, so what you're saying is that the people in Dahlgren are worth a helipad, but the people in Sealston aren't worth a helipad because they can land still in the church parking lot or in the grass or at Walmart or at Sealston or on the middle of the road. So how do we get it was approved for $7 million for a fire station. It wasn't approved for 14, and now I keep hearing all these numbers of 14. How did it double when we haven't even done anything?
When I worked on this project back in 2010, we were looking at about $6 million. And I wish we would have done it back then. The fire station next door, 2007 when we opened it, 23,000 square feet, the cost was about $4 million. I don't know why costs are as expensive as today, but what the architects and engineers tell me is that if you want a 50-year building, then this has to be the type of construction you need. Now, if you want a lesser building, you want a building you're going to replace and it's going to fall apart, then spend half the money.
So in 2023 was the number that you gave us, the 7 million. So this is 2024, and so it's gone up $7 million in 1 year.
No, sir, I did not give you a price of $7 million in 2023. It went from 6 million probably to 7 million after 2010. Then it was 10 million, and that was then it went from 10 million to 14 million. But the 10 million, again, didn't even include the architectural and engineering fees. So we see that here's $1.1 million that has nothing to do with construction. It's just architectural and engineering fees. And there's other things outside of the fire station. There's off-site utilities that have to be run up 301, down by the credit union. There's not water and sewer on site, so that has to be done. There's power lines in front of the station. Those power lines have to be buried. So there are some site conditions that will be that have to be taken care of before you even lay the first brick for the fire station.
So last year, I'm not going to beat this to the ground, but so you tell me that these numbers have changed, but what I'm telling you is last year in the CIP, you said in a public meeting that it was $7 million. Then you said you want $7 million as part of the loan for the school. But then in the last many meetings, I've heard the $14 million number. Still, the $1.1 million for blueprints for building. Are you telling me we cannot get a fire station blueprints for less than $1.1 million?
I don't know why we can't go online and say, we like this building. We'd like to buy the blueprints. Okay? You can do that for a house. You can't do it for a commercial building. If you could do it for a school, it'd be great. Architects do not work that way. I wish they did, but they would make no money that way. So I could go out and pick a facility and say that building will work. But when we ask the architect, can you build that building here? They redesign it for you for a custom application. And that's where the money comes in. That doesn't mean that I agree with it or that I like it, but that's the way it is. We find that with the high school, we find it with the middle school, we find it with any of our facilities. I don't like that, but that is the way it is. And if I publicly said $7 million, I don't know why that would have been the case, because even if you look back into CIP, even 4 or 5 years ago, it was raised from 7 million to 10 million. It's in the documents. So I'm not, I'm not sure, I don't like the way the price is. That's just where the construction has gone.
Anybody else have any questions?
I don't have a question, but a clarification. I was on the courthouse committee, and one of the things I learned by touring courthouses and how ineffective our courthouse was, and that we were given a pass because, and then the pass ended because the judge can go to the state and petition the governor, correct, Mr. Stewart, we have to build a new courthouse by the standards. And when I'm talking about it, is I learned all the things that are required. And I don't know about this one. Maybe, I love construction manager at risk. Maybe Mr. Collins can volunteer to be on that committee to make sure the costs are run correctly, because I can tell you on the courthouse one, we had a lovely discussion about a toilet and deciding who got the toilet and how much it cost. And, and stuff that you can deal with in this committee. But what I liked about the construction manager at risk is everybody had an eye on the thing, and it was all done on a piece of paper before it had cost overrun. And in that courthouse, I found out, especially during COVID, prices have changed dramatically. And one of the reasons the courthouse went up was the amount of money cement and steel cost just in a small window, and that could be it here. And I want to at least give Chief Moody credit for going out for a grant last year that hasn't been really made public. He tried to get a Department of Defense grant to help pay for the fire station, and unfortunately, we were not awarded it. But Chief Moody, you are going out for that grant again, correct?
That's correct. We're going to try another time. And I think it's a long shot. I'd like to be real with this board, and that if we want to replace the station in Dahlgren, that we're going to have to locally fund it. If we get a grant, then that would be great. Even if we do, and we were awarded that opportunity, it's not going to cover 100%. It might cover 80%. But again, last year there were 131 department DOD projects under that grant, and they awarded, I believe it was 15. So, those are the odds. I think we have another opportunity to reapply this year to try to make the grant a little bit more robust and take away the feedback. I will tell you this, and what has been shared to me from the architects and engineers is that if we decide to wait, that the price is not going to go down. If we table it and say, well, we're gonna move it 2 years, another year, the price is only going up. Another point I want to add is we did have to add a fourth bay. And Mr. Collins, this may be part of an answer to the question that you had about some of the expense. The station was originally intended to be a 2-story, 3-bay station. The problem with that is you got nowhere to put a ladder truck. So we have no ladder truck in our county, and if one just showed up here today, we wouldn't have anywhere to put it. So this Dahlgren station was added a 4th bay to house the ladder truck. So that's another point. An additional point is we cut it from a 2-story facility to a 1-story facility. So by doing such, you eliminate an elevator, you eliminate some of the second floor ADA costs that would have to be incurred. So there was a money savings right there. When Mosley originally punched the numbers for construction costs, Ms. Bender, when we put in for the grant, they were looking at around like $17 million total cost. So by making some of those changes, we were able to get the price down to around $14 million total cost. But this $1.1 million, that's part of that $14 million budget. That's not extra.
And go ahead. I just have one more clarification. And understanding our CIP in the last several years, one of the things Mr. Savi is looking at is correcting how we evaluate and put in money in the pot for future projects. So that 7 million might be because we didn't account for, you know, you should always put it in a little bit more than what you think it is, so you make sure you reserve that amount of money. And that's something on our end that's been acknowledged that we need to fix for future CIPs. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Stroud.
I can do that. Mr. Stroud?
Thank you, sir, ma'am. Chief Moody, appreciate your patience. You've been at this a long time, and you know, I need the background that you're providing. But because these things were, you know, these things happened before I got into this position. But the challenge, yeah, and I know you already know this, but the challenge we're dealing with is trying to balance a budget whenever we don't even know what the budget is. Okay, so somebody before us, or at least myself, agreed to things, and now we have to figure out how to pay for it. So I think my question is, do you have, because this building right now is presumably a brick building? Do we know?
The new station? I would presume so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have we looked at using a steel building?
There would be steel components. I don't know if this would be, you know, if this is just a brick facade. I think I can assure you, whatever cost measures you know, we're not trying to have an award-winning design fire station. We're not trying to have the.
How many square feet is it?
16,000. Mr. Stroud, I know one of the things that we looked at in years past, I don't think it's been anything recent, but looking at a pre-manufactured steel structure. I think we even looked at that at one time for some of the courthouse project, and we found that it wasn't as cost feasible as you would think it would be. And Ms. Bender, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I know we have looked at that at other projects, and we looked at it for the fire station too.
Well, I just did some rough math, and at 16,000 square feet, I'm really confident that we could get a 50-year steel building from General Steel for well under $500,000. And the concrete, you know, on that, I mean, I just had over 10,000 square foot poured for about 50K. So, and the steel building, you know, I mean, these are things that I happen to have a little bit of experience with, that if we use a steel building with a 50-year warranty on there, we could be well below the cost and help get your fire station, you know, and then what's your max height you need for you to get that ladder truck in and out of?
I'm not exactly sure on the, as far as the planned height of the apparatus bay that they're looking at.
It's got to fit under overpasses, so 14.
Sure, yeah.
14 foot high would take care of it. Yeah.
You know, the things you got to take in consideration in just like an agricultural steel building is that, you know, you're going to have drains, you're going to have heating, you're going to have a Plymouth vent, diesel exhaust removal system. You got to have, you know, certain types of, you know, bay doors.
Oh yeah,
you know, just
General
heavy duty
Steel.
stuff.
If you're familiar with General Steel, they're like 100% American made, and they're not the cheapest. But you know, we can get together after this and go over that. Maybe get some new cost estimates. It would, you know, it wouldn't take long, within a week. You know, and I'm not talking using me. I could just, you know, we could look at that and see where that goes. But we're talking about industrial buildings. I'm not talking about, you know, an agricultural building. But the same ones they build churches out of, and, you know, huge warehouses and stuff. So it may be another option to look at, is all I'm saying.
Yes, sir, I understand. Can I add something to that, Mr. Chairman? One of the things that's kind of unique about a fire station, that's part of the reason why they call it a firehouse, is that, you know, some of our firefighters, they're actually there at the station, you know, more hours than they're at their own homes. So, like a steel building, you may be able to add some of those things, but the apparatus bay part's probably the most easiest portion of the structure. Then you have to add in a commercial kitchen. Then you have to add in, individual, bunk rooms. Then you have to add in decon rooms. Then you have the fire gear that has to have a certain amount of circulation through the HVAC system to circulate that air. There's just a host of other things that kind of brings the living portion of working in a facility like that 24 hours a day.
The cool thing about the steel buildings is they're manufactured to meet all the code of the county, and they eliminate a lot of your engineering costs. Okay, whenever you give them the zip code that they're manufacturing for, it meets all the codes. So, that's the cool thing about it. And you're going to deal with the build out costs, whether it's a brick building or whether it's a steel building. But the steel building, we're talking about a building that size would be up within 6 weeks. And it's up. And then it's just building out the inside. So you save a ton in labor as well. So I'm just saying, this is something maybe we want to look into, as far as a cost saving measure. I'd be more than happy to meet with you anytime to help with that if I can. Sure. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Okay.
I have a question. I don't know if you guys can answer or not. It's on topic but off. It's the way that this is worded. It's firehouse / preschool bond. Does this in any way of starting this process kind of kick that preschool bond into gear as well, as far as that project going on down the road?
I'll try to answer your question. So last year during the process, the board decided to go out they had presentations from Davenport, our financial advisor, and the combined cost of the preschool and the fire station was estimated at about $42 million. And so we went out for financing for $21 million. And I believe it was in early December that I had gone to the board to set budgets for both of them, the projects, with the majority of the $14 million coming over to the fire station and the remainder to get the preschool going, because we're not as far along on the preschool as we are on the fire station. And the board did not want to do that. And so instead, we put all the money into the bond, and it was going to be parceled out, so to speak, as we got the projects going. So this first piece would be to move the money out of that bond line into a line for the architectural fees for the fire station.
Okay. Yeah, it's just the way it's worded, it's fired.
That's why it's worded that way.
It makes me think like you tied them together, so in order that if it starts one, it's going to kick the other one off.
No, that's the way the financing was done and intended back when this was done last fall. And it was all, for both of them were combined, and the board didn't want to split a budget between the two at that time. They wanted to just put everything into a lump. That was done at the second meeting in December.
Right.
And then that we would come back as we were ready for the projects, for the different parts of those projects. I know, if I remember correctly, the architectural piece is going to take approximately a year before we're ready to put out for the CMAR contract for the building.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate that. I don't know if there's a more cost-effective way to do it. And I hate to say it because people will say, well, you don't care about fire people, and you don't care about the firehouse, and you don't care about the safety of King George. That's nothing to do with it. Of course I care about all those things. That'd be like me telling you that unless you have an armored car and you had the walls padded with 10-inch foam all the way around it, and all your kids had fireproof suits on and helmets, you didn't care about their safety. But we don't do that, do we? We don't maximize it and spend $1 million on a vehicle to make sure our kids don't die in a car wreck and that we're all safe. We look at our budget, we look at how much we have, and we budget accordingly into that to say what can we get that I'm going to keep my family safe. Plus, it's my job to drive the car in a proper way, if that makes sense to you. So I just it's hard for us because we came in on the tail end of it, of trying to figure it all out. And, you know, of course I care about, you know, I live in Dahlgren. Of course I care about the firehouse. The firehouse, the stuff we have down there's been there forever and a day. It's, you know, from volunteers, and they used to run that down there. But you could also understand our concern is that, you know, things in the world, things in the country they're not getting easier tomorrow. You know, as a matter of fact, things are going to get tougher. We have to look at where are we going to spend money and at the same time not tax the people that live in King George out of their own community and out of their own houses in order to, you know, to foot the bill. Because, you know, when we say where's the money coming from, everyone is just going to turn around right around and look at them. And there's some people, their mentality is raise my taxes, I don't care. And I've met with constituents like that. I'm not one of those constituents that I want my taxes raised anymore. You know, I got 4 kids and, you know, school and everything else I pay for, and I make a good living in it. We still live on a budget, you know. So we're not trying to give you guys kickback or pushback on, do you need a fire station? We know you need a fire station. We know that we need a location in Dahlgren. That's where a lot of the heaviest traffic in our area is down there. It's especially come spring, you're going to see the license plates from Maryland, everything come over the bridge, and traffic just picks up and all that. So I just want to reiterate that it's not about that. It's just trying to find the most cost-effective way to do it and give you everything that you need to do your job.
So, Mr. Stroud, I like your idea of at least exploring that until we go further. Do you want to make a motion to table this?
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to table it, so I have a chance to meet with Chief Moody and got it.
Okay. Is there a second? Properly second. Is there any more discussion?
Yes, there is. I just have a clarifying question. I don't mind, you know, agreed to look into another option that might not have been explored, but is there a window or a time frame so that it's not tabled forever?
Well, I think that after Mr. Stroud gets information, that he can let us know. We can put it right back on the agenda, because as everyone up here stated, there's no doubt that the Dahlgren Fire Station needs a fire station, and we did get it for a good price for that land. It's been 10 years trying to get land. That's correct. That's a correct statement. So, but I think that it would be prudent for us to at least look at avenues so we can make it a reality instead of kicking the can. So there was a second. Any other discussion? Oh.
I think it's a good idea to table this and ask some more questions. I mean, the helipad is 8,000 square feet, and being a Navy guy, I've seen helicopters land in a lot less space than that. So maybe something a little bit smaller, a little bit more cost effective. And I noticed as we're looking through the line items, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not included. So I'm curious about what the overall total cost of this thing's going to be when we start bringing in utilities and water and all the other stuff that's required. So I'd like for us to try to ferret that out a little bit more. I'd hate to build a really nice fire station that isn't connected to anything.
Okay. All those in favor? Mr. Stroud?
Aye.
I'll say aye.
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 Aye, we're tabling it, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we're going to table this, and Mr. Stroud's going to get with the chief and see what we can come up with. Thank you. Ms. Hahn, transfer from CIP to debt service?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. During the budget generation cycle for fiscal year 2023-2024, the board approved funding to be placed in CIP to be used for debt payments for the fall 2023 bond sale to finance the new fire station and new preschool. Finance Department has now received the first round of invoices for the interest payments towards this financing that closed November 21st, 2023. In order to process these invoices, Finance needs to transfer the revenue and expenditure amounts from the CIP Fund 302 to Debt Service Fund 401. So with that, I ask that you authorize the county to transfer $415,905 from CIP budget to debt service fund project budget as presented.
Seeing no motions, I guess it dies.
Well, the bill has to be paid. And then the budget, the money's there, I'm just trying to transfer it from one budget to another.
Try one more time. Is there any motion?
No, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely.
This is, thank you, Mr. Chair, this is to pay for
The interest.
the interest of what we, because we already
Yes, ma'am.
got the money. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, hold on a minute and I will get to the resolution. I make a motion to authorize the county to transfer $415,905 from the CIP budget to debt service fund budget as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, Mr. Stroud,
Aye.
Mr. Sullivan,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Ms. Bender,
Aye.
vote aye.
Thank you.
So the resolution to rescind the Service Authority merger, we didn't already did that, so we had to do it again?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you had to do one for the Service Authority and now the one for the Board of Supervisors. It's identical to the other.
Anyone?
Since we've already had the presentation, can we just go straight with the motion?
Yes.
All right, I move to rescind the November 14th, 2023 resolution to initiate the dissolution and termination of the Service Authority to establish a county utilities department. Approval of this motion shall include approval of the attached March 5th, 2024 resolution rescinding the November 14th resolution.
Second.
Properly second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you. Mr. Minor, 306 Wilmot Landing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here tonight to represent as an action item for the Wilmot Landing expansion, parking lot expansion. I'm not going to read the summary of the information. You guys have heard that once before. I'm happy to answer any additional questions. I know that the clerk is here with additional information regarding the expansion of that lot, so he'd be happy to take any more of your questions as well.
Okay, Mr. Clark, please.
You have questions for me?
Last meeting, you had some information that you were going to present to us this meeting in regards to Wilmot.
Yeah, so the county acquired the property in 1993. It's 35,000 square feet. That's it. We're bound by U.S. Fish and Wildlife property on both inland sides, and then we're bound by the Rappahannock River. So we have no room to expand. Discussions were held at the Tourism Advisory Committee with Mr. Minor, myself, by Mr. Baird, who was the chair at the time, who was willing to go and try to see what Washington could do for us, which I thought was a losing endeavor, but he worked diligently for 2 years and met with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and they seem on board of trying to assist us and be able to improve the only county-owned public boat ramp. So we're stuck. We can't go anywhere else. They're not going to, federal government's not going to sell us land. So this study that Mr. Minor is bringing up is to go and look at whatever piece of the land we go to look and try to use. We've got to make sure that it's proper, just like we did it when the Harry Nice Bridge was expanded. They did a full archaeological survey of that property. They dug holes, they sifted through and collected any artifacts and took care of those things to make sure that we don't, they didn't build on something that was protected. With that project, the Board of Supervisors approved that all of those items go to the State Department of Historical Resources. This project, they would be on federal land, so I would guess we could request them if they were artifacts of significance. But being on federal land, I don't know how that would all work. That would have to be part of the agreement with the construction of the property.
Curious of why the federal government's not paying for this study.
Because they don't need it. They don't need a parking lot. It's a wildlife refuge. It's a chance to assist the county in being able to expand our facilities. Depending on how folks park, as Mr. Norris said, you can sometimes have 4 or 5 trucks in there. If you've got dualies and they don't park well, you might only have 3. Some folks and they do park coming back up the road, which then is a danger in coming back down. So if I'm coming into the park and you're coming out, and we've got a couple of trucks and trailers parked along the side of the road, we all know we're out of room on Wilmot Road. The road is narrow, and so finding the proper spot somewhere up the hill is going to be important. There was condition a couple years ago. They've installed a guard. VDOT's installed a guardrail, but we had a washout that started on the side. And as soon as it came to me, I contacted VDOT, even though it's like, I'll make a call. Maybe they'll listen to me as a county official, and they did. Mr. Beal got staff out there immediately. They coned it off. They started doing reinforcement work, and I think within about 2 weeks, we had the guardrail up. And so they improved that. But yes, we're also stuck when you get down that far because the road is bound on both sides by federal property.
So just a question. So nobody has contacted me that they want this. They've only contacted me that they don't want it. So what is the real benefit when the people that live on the road don't want it and nobody else in the county has expressed an interest in wanting it?
Both the Parks and Recreation Needs Assessment and the Economic Development Tourism Strategic Plan both call for enhancing our ability to use the river in this county. We have one county-owned public boat ramp, and at this time maybe we can get 4 trucks and trailers in there, 3 or 4 other people coming down because I'm going to ride in your boat and I'm going to park down there, but then we've overwhelmed that property and nobody else is coming in. So that's, this is where we are right now where we can expand. The only other riverfront property that the county owns at this time is the house on Roseland Road, which is not conducive to become a boat ramp. Really, it's conducive to be a residence. It's not, not conducive to be a park. So how do we expand those opportunities for recreation? Well, this was an outlet to do that. One time, the Hopyard boat ramp was originally intended to be the county's. It was proffered to be the county's. And at that time, the Board of Supervisors immediately transferred it to the Department of Wildlife Resources. So while we do have 2 public boat ramps, only one is owned by the county, and so we only control one.
Board members, questions? Mr. Stroud or Ms. Bender?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Clark, so in your white paper, I noticed that you put in some figures in there about having to hire somebody and pay them to collect the fees and such, right? So considering the small amount of money that would be collecting, I just put a collection box there. That's pretty common at boat ramps. I go to boat ramps and they don't have somebody there, you just put money in a box and somebody comes around and collects that up. To overcome that challenge. And the 300 feet, walking 300 feet really isn't a big deal for me. If they need to park further away. So I know you're just identifying facts as you know them, but the 300 feet wouldn't be a big issue. At Hicks Landing, I routinely have to run 300 feet, parking up there. So, thank you, sir.
Mr. Sullins?
Mr. Clark, do you know why the Hopyard landing was turned over? Is there anything hidden in there? Any kind of dangers?
I've never dug through those documents. I have all the Wilmot deeds and covenants, but I just knew, according to my predecessor said, as soon as we got it, the board wanted to turn it over.
Ms. Bender?
Yes, thank you. My understanding, I need clarification from Wilmot, is how the land came to us. I think there's covenants that we can't charge and it has to be open to the public. So I would like more information on that. And then also, and this burned me back when, with Wayside, which we did own. I am not really happy giving other people artifacts that are truly King George. I know it's federal land. Wayside Park was not, and I'm not happy. I didn't even catch that in the agreement. But giving that property once was King George's, and it has an integral part to the history of King George that I've heard from many long-term residents. The brick factory, that it had a hotel, it was where they brought in the products to go to the famous general store, and I can't remember the name of it, that everybody talked about. Oh, Index, because you could buy everything in the index of a catalog there, and that's where it came in for 'em. So giving away the artifacts and not making sure we get in there that we at least get some of them for our museums is a big sticking point to me. And that $26,000 is also another sticking point, because that seems like a lot of money for a survey.
All righty, what's the pleasure of the board? You want to vote this up or down? You want to table it? What do you want to do?
I would like to see some of those answers, especially the original deed, like can you charge, and also why, about the artifacts, and 26,000, and can't they do it for a little cheaper?
So do you want to table?
I'll make a motion to table until clarification.
So the ownership of the land, the Voorhees family sold the 4/10 of an acre to the county for exchange of, if I remember correctly, $10. With covenants that said we would never build a marina, so we can't put a bait shop and that kind of commercial services down there. So we can't build a bait shop, we can't put try to charge and put slips in and have marina, have boat lane, boats there to be parked at the evening. And then that it would be for the public use. And so that definition, when we look at the federal guidelines that pertain to Wayside and Barnesfield, mean not charging for regular uses.
Okay, so
We have a motion on the table for tabling. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion, Mr. Stroud?
yes, sir, I was just get some clarification. So we can't have a marina where you park, you moor boats and you charge to moor the boats. But are you saying that we can't charge to launch and recover?
I believe in my reading, which, I have a master's degree, did not go to law school. I would be happy to run that by our county attorney to make sure that he is in agreement that that's the way it reads.
Yeah, because it may be to recover costs for parking or something, but yeah, that would be, and it's not gonna be a lot anyway, but it's just the county, we're placing a burden on the residents of the county that other people from other counties may take advantage of. So I think that, we owe it to our citizens to try to recover some of their costs. Thank you. But I second.
All those in favor? Yes, sir, Mr. Sullivan.
More discussion, please. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody left around from that original board, or maybe a county employee that you can talk to and find out? I'm just curious why that was turned over. Was there some compelling reason to make Hopyard be turned over so quickly that might apply here?
I can see what I can
I just don't
find.
want to get bitten on the rear end.
Yeah.
Okay, the motion's on the table to be tabled. There's a second, properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you, sir. Let's go. 307. Professional services agreement for professional planning and zoning services.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here before you this evening in reference to the award of a contract for on-call professional planning and zoning services. Procurement issued RFP 120720231400 to solicit responses from qualified firms for professional planning and zoning services to perform a variety of professional services, which may include zoning, planning and development review, comprehensive planning, compliance and enforcement, staff support related to boards and commissions, residential development subdivision review, rezoning, conditional use permit, special exception permit processing, sign permitting, site plan review, and zoning and subdivision ordinance compliance. From these solicitations, 3 responses were received and reviewed. Staff then coordinated interviews with each firm. Each of these firms was found to be qualified and capable of any potential task orders required. I would request that you authorize the county to execute contracts with 3TP Ventures, A. Morton Thomas and Associates, and Summit Design and Engineering Services, professional planning and zoning services, subject to approval as deformed by the county attorney. I'm happy to take any questions.
Ms. Bender?
Yes, I do have a question, understanding 3TP, because they were involved with the Amazon project. And they reside in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And I did catch in that proposal that we would pay for their travel. And so that did concern me. Is that in all three of them?
No, not for all three of them.
Because that one really concerned me because they're coming from Chapel Hill and
Summit Design and Engineering and A. Morton Thomas and Associates, they are local to Virginia.
Okay.
What was the cost?
There is no cost as of today because they're based on task orders and the pricing was included in your board packet.
Okay, thank you.
Ma'am,
Stroud?
yeah, so which one did you say doesn't charge for travel?
The ones that are local to Virginia are A. Morton Thomas and Associates and Summit Design and Engineering Services.
Because I see that the King George County, let's see here, County Planning Zoning Services, let me see which one it is. I'm looking at one of them, and it says that vehicle and iPhone costs will be included with the inspector rate at a cost of $800 per month. And then, I'm not sure which one that was. I do see the one that 3TP, they say that each trip to and from King George County would include 1 hour of administrative travel that will not be charged to the county.
And a lot of the work that they would do for the county, they wouldn't even necessarily need to come to the county. Some of it could be done
Right,
within
most of
their
it
own
could be done
office.
remote.
Correct.
Okay, so my questions are why are we doing this?
Because this would be for Community Development's office. And at the moment, they are a little overburdened with some of the tasks that they need to fulfill. Currently, they do not have a zoning administrator, and these three companies would fill that role.
Okay, is there any other questions?
So, I mean, I'm not quite done yet.
Okay, well, usually you get one shot and then you come around again.
Okay, well, I wasn't done with the first shot. I'm having a problem hearing there, but I asked why, and
Okay, go ahead.
she stated why, but my question is, where are we failing?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
We're failing somewhere. I mean, where are we failing as a county? If we don't have the right people or enough people to perform the job, we're out servicing it, we're contracting out. And I'm not against contracting out, but where are we failing?
That would be a question for community development.
Okay, and then my next question is, where's the spigot in this? We've got this contract to hire these people, which in 3TP, I looked at it and I don't have any issues here, but where's the spigot? Is it capped at $100,000, $100 million? Where's the spigot and how much we use it for?
Each individual contract would be at $100,000 annually.
$100,000 or more?
$100,000 annually.
Oh, annually. Okay, so the spigot, who's turning that on and off, or when it's used and when it's not used?
Mr. Stones, you have a question? Go ahead.
yes, just for clarification on this is we are understaffed and our small, very good staff is processing a lot of applications. And two things that are driving it are, number one, there were a lot of applications put in at the end of the year to get in ahead of the zoning ordinance change. So there is a lot of applications that are active that have to be serviced. We have a small staff. And secondly, in the Amazon agreement, it is stated, and Mr. Stewart can correct me, that they get to be streamlined. And so that is another burden on the community development.
Mr. Chairman, we
Yes,
don't
sir.
recognize that Amazon agreement as being
That
valid.
is
though.
correct, but
but-
that is one thing that could
But I
be.
think what happened is 3 people resigned from that office, which left 1 person doing the job of 4. And they've had to contract stuff out because under the Code of Virginia, you have timelines that you have to honor when it comes to a lot of the things that community development does.
So those people left last year under the old board. So this is a discussion item, so we'll put it on for action next time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Cook.
Thank you.
Mr. Minor, yes, sir. VFW birthday, family day, TAC application.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, thank you, and I apologize for clogging up the agenda this evening. Let me turn to my VFW. It's typically how these TAC applications come in, either feast or famine. So this evening, the Department of Parks and Recreation is requesting $13,500 for a joint community event between the King George Parks and Recreation, King George Department of Social Services, and King George VFW Post 12202. This will be the second joint event between these parties. Last year, the estimated attendance was 2,000 visitors. They will be using Eventbrite to assist with tracking attendance. The event is free to the public. The 6-hour event provides fun for the entire family, including kids' activities, bounce houses, music, food trucks, beer and wine, craft vendors, and informational vendors. Over 60 vendors were involved in 2023. Social Services and King George VFW Post 12202 are soliciting sponsor support. They will provide information on services available to veterans and the public in general through the county and other organizations. After review, TAC recommends the BOS approve $9,500 funding for this community event from the TAC fund balance. Staff recommends $6,750 for this community event from the TAC fund balance.
So we're gonna go ahead and do 309, 310, and 311.
You wanna run through them all?
And then if there's any questions from the board,
Track
because
it,
these are discussion items, so they won't take action tonight.
track it.
Go ahead, sir.
King George Christmas light decorations. Park and Recreation is requesting $12,000 for additional Christmas pole lights. General Properties and Parks and Recreation staff hang pole decorations along the courthouse corridor between Thanksgiving and New Year's. New decorations were purchased in 2022 to replace ones that were aging and in despair. In 2023, Mr. Jimmy Pennington was able to work with a contact from Dominion Energy to repair some poles where power supplies were broken. Same contact is offered to work with the county on connecting power to more poles through the courthouse area. Staff hopes to add 16 to 18 pole decorations. Funds will be used for pole decorations and necessary electrical equipment for new poles. After review, the TAC recommends the BOS approve $12,000 in funding for additional pole decorations from the TAC fund balance. Staff recommends $6,000 for additional pole decorations from the TAC fund balance. Moving on to Jazz in the Country. Jazz in the Country will celebrate its 5th annual benefit at Mount Bethel Retreat this year. This is a celebration of outstanding jazz in King George with an all-day music event hosted on the Potomac, showcasing award-winning local, national, and international jazz artists. Jazz in the Country aims to captivate and educate attendees about King George County's hidden gem, Mount Bethel Retreat Center. Jazz in the Country is requesting, this is actually an incorrect request. It says on the document 35,000, and the request, Mount Bethel requested 30,000. The goals of the festival are: 1, supporting the historic Mount Bethel Retreat Center and preserving the rich legacy; 2, providing an affordable day of enjoyment for jazz lovers along the Potomac; 3, offering free jazz masterclasses, workshops for local youth; 4, promoting year-round tourism in King George County. After review, TAC recommends that the BOS approve $25,000 funding the annual TAC budget for this event, and staff recommends $15,000 from the annual TAC budget for this event. So just one clarification. The Parks and Rec comes from the fund balance. That is the large amount of money, or basically the big balance that we have. There's an allocated amount that I went over at the last meeting, I believe, where there's $64,000 set aside. So just to clarify. Last but not least, Rhythm and Pints Festival. Gravit Productions is proposing the first annual Rhythm and Pints Festival for King George to be held in August 2024. It is a family-friendly event with music, interactive workshops, craft beer and wine tasting, art, and cultural corner for artisans to display and sell their crafts and give live demonstrations. Local chefs, food trucks, cafes, and restaurants will be asked to participate in other activities as well. Rhythm and Pints is requesting $14,500. Target attendees are local families and those within a 30-mile radius who have an interest in music, child-friendly activities, beer, wine enthusiasts. The event is open to the public and free. They're looking to partner with local nonprofits to benefit from proceeds. After review, TAC recommends the BOS approve $14,300 funding from the TAC budget for this event. Staff recommends that the BOS approve $7,250 from the annual TAC budget for this event. And I think some of the grant requesters are here this evening. They'll be happy to answer any questions that we may have tonight, and I'll do my best to represent those marked. Thank you.
Any board members have any questions?
I do on the last one, the King George Rhythm thing. I'm sorry, sir. Where is that to be held at?
Sealston.
Sealston.
Yes, sir.
I hate the fact that everything we hold is on the very edge of town. And it's not drawing people into town, spend money in town. People are going to come. If they come from out, they're going to go to Sealston, they're going to go right back out. The only thing that drives me nuts, and I know that's not your fault.
Right.
Mr. Sullivan?
So on these requests, or on the recommendations, there's a TAC recommendation and a staff recommendation.
That's
Do you mind
correct.
explaining the
Yeah,
difference?
so so per the state code, every tourism funding request through the county has to be reviewed from that TAC board. This is what that community committee is basically recommending to this board of supervisors to approve. It's almost like when you're going through a rezoning, you'll have your planning commission recommendation, and then you have your staff recommendation on that application. Similar process, definitely not as strenuous, not a 10-member review. So.
Mr. Stroud?
Yes, sir. Mr. Minor, I attended the event last year. It was a good event.
Which one? Sorry, sir.
The event over in Silston.
The VFW one?
Right.
Right.
And so I'm a member of the VFW in King George, and I attended the event, but it was a good event. But there were a lot of food trucks, or a lot out there. I have a question on it though. Whenever the food trucks come out, do we charge them to come out?
So each food truck has to have a business license for the county. We do not charge an additional fee, I think, for them to be here. But maybe the event charges an additional fee, Chris?
Yes, so the event does charge that. The VFW post and social services take care of all of the vendors. And so the food trucks, the crafters, the nonprofits that are there. So we get a mix of military-based nonprofits that come and present their programs to those from the military, and then social services uses it to show us anything that's social related. So we have the food bank and Empower House and the community services board all on site too. And it really was developed as the first year we did it, we did Family Day at the high school with social services. We had a DJ, or actually, well, Mr. Franklin was the DJ himself. He played music. We did it in conjunction with KGYA football. We had Little League games on the softball field, and we played some soccer games on the practice field so that we had folks there. We packed the high school. The following day, Sunday, the VFW ran their first birthday party at Barnesfield Park. And to Mr. Davis's point about wanting to bring events to other sections of the county, they overfilled the park. And as soon as the first report to me was, well, Chris, we parked people up and down Barnesfield Road. Barnesfield Road is a state road and is no parking on both sides, but they were that popular that they had filled the entire park. So we got together for last year and used Sealston because we based that off the Independence event. And 2,000 is a rough estimate because we didn't, whereas last year with the Independence event, I knew how many parking spaces we painted on the grass. We have everybody parked everywhere. They parked along the road, they parked in the parking lot, they parked on the field. It was packed.
I was just curious.
So yeah, they do charge for all the vendors. Part of that is for the VFW's building fund. Social services is not using it to make any profit. They're just their real goal is to get their name out out into the public, because most of us, when we say social services, the only thing we can think of is child protective services, and they do so much more.
I mean, I was just curious how that worked, if they were paying in, if it went back into this funding.
Yeah, if we were to have an abundance of money, then we would pay back. And we talked about that last year, and the amount that they had left was used as startup costs for this year.
Okay, Ms. Bender?
Yes, I had a Jazz in the Country question, so they might want to come up. And I know this was asked last year because this is the 5th year, and it is a very popular event, and it does bring, to the Dahlgren area. But the increase is a little bit more. And so one of the questions that was brought up last year is, this would be your 5th year. It's how can you be a little bit more self-sustaining, I guess would be the question.
We would love to be. We're working toward that, but it is vitally important because one of our visions is to bring more tourism to King George. So support from county government is really what is the foundation for our success. Marketing, the cost for marketing goes up every year, and we depend on those funds to help us going. To keep going, and also to get the word out from Jersey all the way down to Florida. And we've had people attend not only in the DMV, but farther up the North Mid-Atlantic area as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you all. These are discussion items. We will now go to 312, which is appoint the Community Policy and Management Team, members for the King George County Children Services Act for the calendar year 2024. Is there nominations?
We have to have one clarifying, but I know Mr. Stewart just stepped out. Because from my understanding, there needs to be a Board of Supervisor on this committee. One of us needs to serve.
On that for a moment. Senior Advisor of the Board of Supervisors not here for 313. Is anybody going to present King George health insurance premium rates? Can someone make a motion to table that until we can?
I'll make a motion to table it.
No, second.
Properly second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. So, secondary public comment. Comments were limited to 3 minutes per person. In order to afford everyone an opportunity to speak, please provide your full name and district when submitting your public comment so they can be properly included in the public record. Is there anyone for public comment? Mr. Norris.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I noted that you tabled this item, but I just want to make a couple clarifications as being somebody who has resided in that area all his life. In the white paper, it said it would be at least 300 feet from the landing. I measured it today, and at 300 feet would be the very least is correct. Artifacts found there, it could be as much as, 900 yards? 375 yards away from the parking area that we're talking about. Down a narrow road, down a steep curving portion down to the landing. It's dangerous, very dangerous. Other thing I wanted to point it out, and it might just be an oversight on Mr. Clark, he mentioned guardrails at a washout. There are no guardrails on that road. Travel it every day. There's no guardrails anywhere. Now, there are some delineator signs which are right next to a washout that flash up that, hey, there's not to get too close to the shoulder. They're black and white diagonal slash signs. But they're not guardrails. It wouldn't prevent you from going over the bank, coming down or going up. If you drifted too far to the left going down, you got a 200-foot ravine. You drift too far to the right coming back, you got a 200-foot ravine you're going down. The road was washed out below that several times, twice to be exact, It was rerouted to its present position rather, and it washed out after that. State paid to come in and have the road redone. It's just not feasible to put that much more traffic on that road when the road really can't handle it. Now, some of you may have been down there, I don't know. But as I said earlier, I'd be happy to meet with you. I know my son sent you email and put out my phone number to you that you could certainly call, and I would happily walk you through. For further discussion items, if we're going to take this on with the tourist committee, I think people from that area ought to be involved. Now, I know that there was public meetings held for them, and there was no public comment, but in the dead space of no internet, we wouldn't have found out too much about it anyhow. The only reason I found out about it now was because my son was coming up here week before last to talk about the internet, and he saw it on the agenda. So again, I thank you for your consideration, and I hope that somebody will come down and look with me, learn a little of the history, and see that it's really not the place it's supposed to be. And one other point, I was on the original committee that designed that parking area, and to my knowledge, I'm the only one left. The others have been are deceased. So I can tell you a lot why it's the size it is and why we didn't want to make it any bigger. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to make public comment?
Good evening, board members. Jason Norris, James Monroe District. Grew up my entire life, like I said a couple weeks ago, on Wilmont Road. We want to increase the access. I get why, as an outdoorsman, we want to do that. As the white paper said, we can't make it a marina. We got to look at the definition of marina, which is a place to moor and dock your vessel. We're going to put our boats up a hill, or your trailer, up a hill around a blind turn. That current state of that landing, there's no place to tie up a boat and allow someone else to use it. So are we really increasing the access? At that point, you got the boat ramp tied up, you got other boats lined up coming up the state road to use it. On top of that, I am not gonna walk 300 feet, 300 yards with my kids down a gravel road, down a hill, a blind turn, to get back to my vessel I've just left unattended. It's not gonna happen. So what access are we really doing? What access are we giving? We already have too much usage down there. The county pays to do the maintenance. If y'all have gone down there and walked to the pier, how much maintenance is done? The pier pilings are rotting. There's trash everywhere. One of the local residents of the road goes down once a week and picks up the trash. We're paying for it. What are we getting out of it? We're not even doing our due diligence and being good stewards of the land we already have, but we want to add more access. With more access comes more problem. So we need to keep that in mind. We don't want to pay someone to charge however you want to do it. I get that. There's things that come with that. But we're already paying someone to pick up the trash that they're not doing. A resident is doing it. So I don't understand why we need to go forward with this. It doesn't make fiscal sense, especially from the tourism budget. Closest store, back porch, open 14, 16 hours, 3 days a week. How much money is that going to generate for tourism? The next one will be Oak Grove, not even in our county. Then you have Round Hill Market, then Sheets. When I go on a fishing trip with my family, I'm packed ready to go fishing. I'm not stopping at another store because if y'all are parents or have kids, you're not getting them out of the car more than you have to. And if you tow a boat, you're not taking it into too many parking lots. You want to get to where you're going and you use it. We just need to be smart. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Seeing none, Mr. Dines, is there anybody online? Okay, we'll close that, and we'll go back to 312,
No, I've still got the one that I needed to read from earlier.
sir. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I hope this message finds you well. My name is Tristan Beverly, and I serve as the president of the King George County Professional Firefighters and Paramedics Local 4438. I'm unable to attend tonight's Board of Supervisors meeting in person, as I'm currently in our nation's capital representing my members advocating directly with legislators on key issues impacting firefighters' jobs, health, safety, and economic security. I'm writing to urge you to vote yes on the professional services agreement for the new fire station, which is on tonight's agenda under the action items. It is crucial that we pass this agreement so that our firefighters and emergency medical service workers can have a safe environment to work and train in. Currently at Fire Rescue Company 2 in Dahlgren, our bunk rooms and living rooms open directly into the apparatus bay, exposing us to more than our fair share of diesel exhaust fumes compared to our other fire stations. While our department leadership, with the help of funding from previous boards, has been able to make necessary improvements to reduce this risk by implementing a diesel exhaust venting system, our current building, even with these improvements, is still not an acceptable living quarters for our firefighters who risk so much to protect the citizens and visitors of our county. No other profession is asked to come to work and be exposed to the amount of cancer-causing chemicals that we're exposed to as firefighters. The World Health Organization has even recognized working as a firefighter to be a Category 1 carcinogenic exposure, the same level as smoking tobacco or unprotected exposure to radiation. Firefighters are almost 15% more likely to die from cancer and nearly 200% more likely to develop some forms of cancer. The total project budget of $14 million may seem high, but it is essential for ensuring the long-term health and safety of our firefighters and emergency service providers. Investing in a new station now will save costs in the long run and provide a facility that can serve our community for the next century. New station that is going to last the next 100 years, not just the next 20. Oh, we need a new station. Sorry about that. We need you to act now. Again, we ask you to tonight to do what is right for our firefighters and emergency service providers and approve this item. Respectfully, Tristan A. Beverly, President, King George County Professional Firefighters and Paramedics.
All right,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. So let's go back to 312. Mr. Stewart, Ms. Bender had a question. You stepped out of the room, so we skipped over that. Go ahead, Ms. Bender.
Yes, Mr. Stewart, it come to my attention that upon further review of this team, we need to have an elected representative on the Board of Supervisor member. Is that correct?
Ms. Bender, yes, they sent the statute to me last week, I think, and we reviewed it, and it's very clear that it's a board member or their designee that has to be on there. Way read, I believe.
Would you like to volunteer for that?
I am on too many other boards.
Appoint someone.
So so can we appoint the ones here? Then find the board member that will be interested in do that?
Yes, sir, you can do that.
Needs to be a board member on the
There needs to be a board member on.
CPMT.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to nominate Mr. Sullins.
That was cold. Do you want to accept the nomination?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
You owe me.
I'd like to second.
Properly
You owe me as
second?
well.
Well, can I make a nomination for all of them then?
Yes, please.
I would like to nominate the members of Mr. Sullins, Kate Howard, Melissa Ware, Jonathan Franklin, Melanie Cobb, Daniel Hicks, Natasha Cheek, Jackie Kobit, I'm going to butcher, Kobuchi, because I don't want to butcher the name, Donna Andrews, Donna Hahn, Jessica Emery, Jackie Kunzman, Deborah Solser, and Dylan Pettit, to the Community Policy and Management CPMT team for King George County Children's Services Act, CSA.
Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Thank you. So the next item will be a closed meeting. Mr., do you have the closed meeting?
Yes, sir. Pursuant to Code 2.2, TAC 3711A1, I make a motion, we have a closed meeting to discuss personal matters.
It was personnel, I think, not personal, right?
Personnel. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Chair votes aye. We're now in closed session.
Yeah, please.
All ready? Is there a motion? Board members, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we adjourn until March 19th.
Return to closed session.
I'll make a motion, we return to closed session and certify by roll call vote.
Mr. Stroud, certified?
I certify that only personnel matters were spoken during the closed session, sir.
Mr. Davis?
Say aye.
Say whatever you want. Certified.
Yeah, I certify.
So certified.
Okay,
So certify.
all right. We are now in open session.
Mr. Chairman, I couldn't hear down here and I'm half deaf. Did you all certify that, no action was taken, that you only discuss matters under the call within that session?
We didn't put it that way, but somebody please put it that way. Only public business matters.
You
that
only
were
discuss
heard,
matters under the
considered,
call.
Or otherwise.
Yes. He did. He just used personnel because that's what we went back to.
That's what I said. I didn't call out the code again, but I stated that the only matters that we were to talk about were personnel matters. That's all we talked about during the closed session.
And that you didn't take any action.
And
And that
we
you
did not
didn't take any action.
That is correct, yes, sir.
That's all you have to certify.
Alrighty. Now we can go to adjournment.
I got ahead of myself before, being cautious. I make a motion that we adjourn until March 19th at 5:30 in the Rivercombe Boardroom.
Second.
Probably second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you, board members.